Hi, good afternoon, Alistair.
Good afternoon, Alasdair.
And what are we thinking about today?
Well, this is the third time we're talking about today, but what we're about to talk about, I hope, is the effect of the Catalan referendum and the stramash that they've had down there on how that might play into the independence movement here and specifically how it might affect the development of our strategy to achieve independence.
Actually, that's quite interesting because Liz has just come in
She has,
and
yes.
told us the foreign minister has just declared that what we saw in the videos and the police brutality didn't actually happen.
Yes, well, I,
Yeah, it's interesting.
it's, it's,
Yeah,
it's a brave new world dystopian, dystopian world.
yeah. You didn't
Um,
see what you just saw. No.
no,
Anyway, your thoughts, your initial thoughts
well,
on this.
I
Do you
ha-
think actually? Can I just kind of put this proposal to you? Does it hark back to that original first video that you put out there?
well, it does because the essence of what I was saying is that the route forward, and less than until the British nationalists fulfil their end of the democratic bargain, unless they recognise that there is a mandate and that we can have a referendum, as and when the people of Scotland, as and when we want to, can have an individual referendum, then they're not fulfilling their end of the democratic bargain. And therefore, that liberates us, provided the essence of what I was saying is provided that our backstop and our bedrock of this strategy is that we will always pick up the democratic mantle once again. As soon as they're prepared to fill it, we will meet our side of the democratic bargain. It's not a violent or a bloodletting exercise. It is using governmental action, not insurrection, but governmental disobedience, as it were. It's a sort of form of Gandhi's civil disobedience in order to provoke a reaction from the Unionists. Now, what we've seen with Catalan is that you can provoke a reaction like this. You really can. But there's an interesting difference between Catalonia vis-à-vis Spain and Scotland vis-à-vis Britain. And that is, we don't have a law that outlaws independence. We don't have a constitutional draft that says Scotland can never be independent. The Spanish can, with the best will in the world, they can hide behind, and it is just hiding behind.
Yeah. Yes.
But they can hide behind. They can point to the Constitution and say, "No, that's John, not me, or not me, Jorge." It's nothing to do with me. I would, I'm a good person. I would let them have a referendum, but hey, I can't because the Constitution doesn't allow it. And it also doesn't. There's no mechanism in the Scottish Parliament for a lawful shutdown of the Scottish Parliament, a lawful withdrawal of direct rule. They can do it as a matter of practical fact. De jure they can do it. Sorry, de facto they can do it, but not de jure. De jure they are checked by constitutional conventions in Scotland.
You're using those legal terms again.
Well, a constitutional convention is the idea that it's a self-denying promise that those in power have. So to give you a good example, the Sewell Convention, says that they want to enact laws that affect devolution. That Westminster won't intrude into devolution without the Scottish Parliament say so. Of course, the Supreme Court comes along and says, well, it's just a self-denying ordinance. They can do what they like, which is correct. De jure they can.
And de
facto means in fact.
Yes.
De jure means in law.
Okay.
In law, in terms of the Constitution, they can. In law, they can, but in terms of the Constitution, they can't really. They've got to abide by the conventions. But they can override them if they want. As a matter of practical policy, they can. But it's the dynamic, the reaction to the Spanish reaction to the governmental resistance or in Catalonia has been to use the law. But those avenues aren't as open to the British government as they are to the Spanish government, which makes the dynamic of the notion of governmental action against the Constitution much more fluid here, much gives it much greater dynamic and gives it much greater purchase. Because two reasons. One, it will be brave Theresa May that sends the troops in, that sends English policemen up to stop people voting. It will be a brave Theresa May that does that.
Mm.
And brave, I mean brave in the Sir Humphrey. You're being brave, Prime Minister.
What, yes, Minister Sir Humphrey?
Yes, how very brave of you, Prime Minister. Which means it's an entirely stupid thing and you shouldn't ever do it. You know, that kind of brave.
Okay. Right.
And the chances are, ironically, as much as Nicola and the SNP retreat from the idea of independence, Catalonia probably makes it much, much more likely, in my view, that the SNP, if they went for a unilateral referendum, would get it. If they demand it, they'll get it. Because the horror of what happened, the democratic outrage of what happened in Catalonia is something that even Theresa and her chums, the British nationalist chums in London, don't want to see.
Mm-hmm.
But a full-blown independence referendum isn't the way to go here. It's not the way to go. There's a better way.
There's a better way.
There's a better way. It's kind of the same thing I was talking about. We have a cause célèbre at the moment. And this is a practical thing that they can do, and they can dare the unions to fight us on it. And it's this. We at the moment, in law, as it stands in law, we have a situation where that which comes back from, that which is not reserved in the Act, is ours.
Okay.
That which is reserved is theirs, obviously, is London's. The British nationalists can exercise. But anything's not reserved. Now that includes a raft of powers, 118 or something, that are coming back.
Traffic lights.
Traffic lights, but more than that. Because what I was saying before is that we should pick an idea. Pick one.
Okay, I understand that, yes.
And
yes.
then tread into reserved territory.
Okay.
What I'm saying now is dare them to tread into our territory.
Okay, now how do we accomplish that?
Here's the thing.
So you're asking them to bring the fight to us?
Well, no. I'm like Bruce at Bannockburn. Choose your ground.
Okay.
And let them come to you.
Okay.
That's what he did.
Right.
He knew ground is the portal. We can choose the ground now, and the ground we choose is the reserve powers. Is the devolved powers that they want to reserve. Now, what the unionists want to do is recraft devolution. What the British nationalists want to recraft devolution so that you have a situation where they devolve partially, so that devolution, far from becoming a mechanism to create an independence-ready Scotland, becomes a mechanism to bind Scotland ever closer into the Union. You'll get a situation where agriculture, you won't be able to create an agriculture policy without really following the English one. Yes, we can put a kilt on the English policy, but we have to follow the English policy because they set it, and they'll tell us what we can do. Whereas if we have total control, then we can do what we like. And if we choose to have a single market, we can have a single market. And if we choose not to, we don't have to have one. That's up to us. So instead of meekly saying, we'll accept this, or we will argue, why not use that as a cause for either a referendum or parliamentary votes or some form of government industry? Say quite categorically, no, we're not negotiating on this. We're not negotiating at all. Those powers are not reserved. Those powers, anything that's not reserved, is by definition devolved.
Do you have anything in particular in mind?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. The whole 9 yards. Everything that's going to come back from Westminster, from Europe, instead of going to Westminster, we say it comes here. And we put you on notice right now. Right now. We're not voting for this. We're not agreeing to it. There'll be no vote through Parliament. You will not get this through. You will have to do this. You will have to do this in the face of independence. In the face of, not independence, but in the face of a denial of a consent motion. There will be no consent to this. And it's not negotiable at all. They say, well, we'll do it anyway. Okay. In that case, we will have a referendum on it. We will have a referendum on this subject alone. Whether it comes back now. They can't deny it because it's perfectly legitimate. Holding a referendum, there's a good argument that says you can't have an independence referendum. if it would result in independence, there's a good argument that you
Right.
can't have it. Let's not go into the nuance of it, but there's a good argument that it would be ultra vires, that is beyond the competency of the Scottish Parliament. Referendums, by definition, are not. It's quite competent for the Scottish Parliament to have a referendum on education, health, agriculture, anything it wants. It has to fund it, and it's quite proper to fund it. So we can do that. And it's quite proper for the Scottish Government, if it wants to go to London and say, look, traffic lights are reserved, colours of traffic lights are reserved, but we want to make them, because we're a sort of transgender nation, we want to make them pink, purple and, I don't know, lilac or something. Whatever. We're quite entitled to do that. But we don't even have to do that. We're simply saying these are reserved and we are not agreeing to anything. Nothing. Not a single negotiation do we have on it. It's in the law already. All we want is the law to be enforced.
Now you're assuming that they're going to react to this.
Of course they're going to react to it.
Why?
Because they can't create a single market without it. They have to take the powers. I mean, there's two reasons they want to take the powers. First of all, they want to take the powers because they can't create a single market. They can't go and do a trade deal with America if they can't. They've got the only people who can do the trade deal with America, but they can't do a trade deal.
Which is a reserve power.
Which is a reserve power. But they can't do a trade deal in agriculture if they don't control agriculture.
Okay.
So the only way they could do that is to treat the Scottish Government as an equal, and they're not going to do that. That is not in the picture. And of course, it also has the effect of recrafting devolution and binding it in. So if the SNP are serious about this, if they're serious about independence, it's time to stand up for what you believe in. And devolution is on the statute book now. Those powers are devolved now. We're not asking for anything new. We're not asking for any considerations. We're just saying, we'll stick with the status quo, thank you very much. We're not changing anything. And if they turn round and they say, we're going to go ahead and do it anyway, they say, well, fine. Well, let's have a referendum on it. And then let the unionists argue against it.
Okay.
Let Druth and Tompkins and Murdo Fraser, let the Better Together guys get back and tell us that we're all better together. Let's go down that road. Because it becomes a surrogate for an independence referendum.
It does. Interesting.
And we can put that on the line. We can do that now. We can bring that. It's a cause célèbre. It is on the statute book. Nicola says, everyone says that that's what they want to achieve. Well, it's time to man up. If you have got the balls to do it, then start doing it. Because when you do that, watch what happens to your numbers. Watch what happens to your polling numbers. Because you will re-engage the self-disenfranchised. Now, don't get me wrong. They do not believe. They're not going to go to the barricades. They're not going to get out of their beds for, food subsidies or whatever. They're not going to do that. No. But everyone who knocks on the door says, look, it's really about independence, isn't it? Everybody who speaks to them at every conference, at every town hall meeting, the talk is not really about, it's a surrogate. But one that we can do, one we can have, and one we can fight.
Now, if the British government reacts the way the Spanish government has...
Good. Let's do
That's
that.
a good thing.
Of course, report to reaction. What are they going to do? They can't go to court.
It escalates or...
No, they can't. They can't go to court. They've got no lawful right to do so. They haven't got any right to go to court to stop that referendum. Now, what they can do, they can thumb their nose at us. They can turn around and say, we don't care what you want. We don't care what your referendum result was. I mean, they'd win that one like that. You're going to win that quickly. Make promises. You can go out. You can make promises to the fishermen, to the farmers. You can put promises to everyone because you have control of it, and we're not going to be under EU law anymore. We can make all sorts of promises and might not ever be able to keep them, but you can make them. You'll win that one easily, and it's a surrogate for independence. We get the movement back going. Everybody, the wheels are back in the bogie, and we're trucking down the road again. But that takes courage. Now's the time Now's the day and now's the hour. And that's the battle of ours.
Okay.
Because we can do this. It's within the law. The law becomes our sword and our shield. Are we insurgents? Yes, we are. Are we putting bombs in petrol stations? No, we're not. We're not killing anybody, we're not hurting anybody. All we're asking for is that the law be respected. The law that we all settled on. The law that they are bound by their conventions. If the British Constitution means anything, then they must abide by it. Put them on the defensive.
Okay.
Fight a battle that we can win.
It's something worth thinking about, Alasdair, and seeing if there's actually any kind of appetite for this kind of process out there.
There's no appetite for it at the moment because this the people who support independence, they don't particularly want to go to the barricades on devolution, but it's not really about devolution. This is not about devolution. I stress this. It's not. I'm no supporter of devolution. This is about showing them who's boss, and who's boss isn't Nicola, isn't Theresa. The people who are boss are the people of Scotland.
Yeah.
And if they say no, that's the end of the matter.
And it's almost as though the people of Scotland take their sovereignty back.
If the sovereignty, it all comes down to sovereignty. If
Yes.
we talk, we talk at length about the sovereignty of Scotland.
Yeah.
But this is what it really means. It means if we don't want them to have those, to take those, to reserve those powers, they govern not by some right, they govern at our pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And they exercise power at our pleasure. Nothing else, nothing more. As a sovereign people, we can choose to grant that power to them, or to the EU, or to whomsoever we want. But if we say you don't reserve that power, it endeth the matter. And let them put themselves in a position when they say, we don't care about the sovereignty of the Scottish people. We couldn't care less.
And see what happens.
And see what happens. What will happen is you will get the 60% level of independence.
We hope.
No. We want to cast them in the same light as the Spanish government. Now they're not going to go. They've learnt a lesson from the Spanish government. They're not.
Absolutely.
They're not going to send English policemen up to
No.
do that. But what we want is for Ruth and somebody to campaign against devolution. And we want Anna Sarwar or Richard, what's his faces, to go and campaign against devolution.
Do you think they have the
Well, make
political
them.
wherewithal and
Make
to
them.
actually do something like that?
Well, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
They either have to side with us and agree, or they have to sign with us and agree, or they have to go, or they have to say, well, we're campaigning with the Tories against devolution.
Again.
Well, no, they
Right.
campaigned against independence before.
Yeah. Well, that's even worse. But yeah.
But they like to say they are the fathers of devolution. They are devolution's their project. Well,
Yeah.
fine. It puts them in a difficult position.
Of arguing against it.
Well, they're arguing against the status quo. It's not like they're not saying to us, look, we're not saying, look, we want a change in the devolution settlement. We want these new powers devolved. We say, oh no, we don't think that's right. Tug the beard, don't think that's right. No. We just want to stay as it was. Your government, Mr. Sarwar, the government you supported, they drafted this legislation. They passed it. Do you disagree with Tony Blair now? Oh, I'm with the Tories now. Well, we've always known that, but, it's just we make hay. It's just too good.
Okay.
That is something you can do now. It's within your powers, and it has the result. You defeat the British nationalists. And once you get the habit of defeating them, it's like the British Army in North Africa. Everything was a defeat until Alamein, and after that everything was a victory. That's what we want, that turning point moment. That would do it,
Okay.
in my view.
All right.
Their end of the lesson.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Alasdair. We'll have a think about it, and I'll chat to you soon.
Okay.
Bye bye now.